In today's complex, ever-changing business world, many companies and many leaders struggle to adapt, struggle to get the best from their people. And unfortunately, quite a lot of people are also struggling with various forms of psychological suffering, whether that be imposter syndrome, fear of change, fear generally, and so on. So my guest today is Colin Kingsmill, founder of Colin Kingsmill Coaching. He's also a co-founder in Whole Human Coaching, which is all about coaching people through the lens of those complexities that I just mentioned and taking a new approach to coaching that the previous structural approaches, the previous models of coaching, of leadership don't really address. He's also a strategic advisor, management consultant, and an author, as well as a brilliant podcast guest. So we're going to have a great conversation today about all of those things, as well as leadership itself, and the importance of self-awareness and keeping an open mind to differing points of view.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Great. Colin, thank you so much for joining us today from snowy Canada, sunny Canada, bit of both.
It's sunny Canada now. It was snowy just until a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, hallelujah for the sunshine and the spring. Spring has arrived.
Excellent. Excellent. Pleased to hear it. Good timing as well. Well, let's kick off then by me handing the virtual mic over to you to tell listeners a bit about yourself, your business, your career so far, and what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. So my career so far, I mean, the first part of my career I spent in banking in Switzerland, which anyway, I didn't love, needless to say. The second part of my career has been in destination real estate, sales, marketing, branding, and communications for the past 20 years or so. And I started to evolve more into coaching because I found that in my management consulting work, I really needed to dig into the why and the purpose and the reason for people doing what they do. So I thought I should go back to school again for the third time and really learn how to coach people to get their brand essence out of them, and then with that become a better communicator, a better marketer, a better salesperson with a stronger story. So I'm still doing management consulting. Really on projects that I like around destinations and places with purpose, with real purpose around art and culture and music, and also around health and wellness and or well-being and transformation. So I'm a strategic advisor to a company called Kalo, and also I set up something called Whole Human Coaching recently with a couple of other coaches, because I think the industry needed to be. We needed to look at people a bit more holistically than just, sort of traditional executive coaching, because the world is complex and people are complex, and we recognize that and come at you from sort of a 360-degree perspective. What gets me out of the morning, not enough coffee apparently, but what gets me up in the morning is really being able to serve people and help people come into really life with integrity and work with integrity, and helping them thrive and deconstruct the stories in their head that may be holding them back. So that's my whole kind of modus operandi: deconstruct to reconstruct, really. That's me today. I moved to the countryside. That's why I'm in. It's not even business casual. It's very casual. But I think from a place that is close to nature and close to the forest and close to the ocean, and I'm a much better coach. I'm a much better advisor by being in a place of tranquility and peace and calm, and God knows the world is crazy enough. So you don't need me to be crazy too. So that's it. That's me.
Awesome. No, I hear all of that. I hear all of that. I'm with you. Definitely. Definitely not jealous at all. If he said,
hey, like I said, you are welcome to come anytime and get a taste of Nova Scotia hospitality. It's everybody is so friendly here. It's almost disalarming.
Amazing.
Not used to it.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a very different pace to what I'm used to. But I look forward to that. It'll be something in the future, definitely.
It really is an open, sincere invitation. This part of the world is spectacular. I moved here last year. I'd never been to this part of Canada. I grew up on the West Coast, and when we decided that, sort of middle pandemic and post pandemic, that we wanted to come home, we thought, well, let's try the other coast. Let's see what it's like over there. And it's been, sight unseen. I had never, ever been here, but we bought a house and a car and everything before we got here. And thankfully, it was a good choice.
Yeah. It's the scale of the place, I think, is what boggles the mind. Speaking as someone from the UK and Europe, it's in the time it would take us to get from one side of Europe to the other, you probably would get halfway across Canada, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing how important space is and nature, and how it nourishes you and nurtures you. I didn't really realize that, when I've lived in London. I lived in London for 3 years. I've lived in other busy cities like Belgrade, a city in transformation. Lived in Italy, which is, very densely populated, right? So I'm loving this wide open spaces, and everybody I know thinks I'm crazy because they're like, "Oh my, what do you? How don't you miss the city and city life?" And I'm like, "No, I can dip into that whenever I want." So yeah.
Change is as good as the rest, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah. So here I am in with the dogs in a great place to work from. I think by being in a place so close to nature, I have just greater clarity and peace of mind. So there we go.
Awesome. Let's talk a bit more then about some of the things you do. So I know fear is one of the big things you talk about, and I guess fear, imposter syndrome, things around that sort of ilk. Challenges that are very familiar, I expect, to most new managers, if not seasoned managers. So what are some simple steps to overcome those kind of challenges? Sure.
And it's funny, somebody asked me recently, because I'm writing a book on fear as well. They said, what do you know about that, right? How are you an authority? And I guess because I've traveled the world and said yes to opportunities and yes to projects that I didn't know anything about, and I've really spent the second part of my life, I suppose, diving into the deep end, right? And so what I've learned along that sort of path, and what your listeners and viewers might enjoy is. So my experience around fear is, the first thing is really kind of self-awareness, right? Just recognizing, I think, that you're telling yourself a narrative and a story, right? And what often happens is we're conditioned as younger adults or as children, and we carry that conditioning forward. And we work and live through that lens of fear, right? So my mission is really, let's deconstruct that fear for you. So self-awareness, right? Recognize that you are in a fearful place, because sometimes we don't, and we'll have, maybe get depressed or full of anxiety and things like that. So the idea is recognizing the root cause of the fear. Where is it coming from? So self-awareness, recognition that it's a story. Okay. It's a narrative, and you can change the narrative. All right. And articulate really what is the fear, right? A lot of people will have a sensation of fear, but they can't quantify precisely where it's coming from or what it is. So if you're aware, You recognize it as a story. Look at the story and try and figure out if it's real to you, if it's real, if it's true. And if it is, that's okay. But what are you going to do about it? And is it serving you? Is that story, is that narrative serving you? And how much energy do you want to expend on it? And I often ask people to think about their work life as with a fuel tank metaphor, right? So how much fuel do you have in your fuel tank? How much do you want to expend on this fear that's going on? And often if you kind of look at those 4 points or those 4 pieces, you can set yourself free from that kind of fearful work and looking at and making decisions through that filter, which is not necessarily, I think, always serving you. Hope that answers your question.
That's really interesting. I like the fuel tank metaphor in particular. And I think, self-awareness is it's such a useful thing, such a useful ability to be able to develop. I mean, it can help you in leadership. It can help you overcoming fear, all sorts of things.
It's and if you pair it with some sort of mindfulness exercise, it's so liberating, so freeing, because fear can be so debilitating and make you make decisions. Like fear-based decisions are usually not the best ones, and they're not serving you, and they're not, they're really holding you back. I see fear as a real ball and chain, that is holding you back. But I use the fuel tank metaphor because a lot of people can relate to that, right? It's like, what's your fuel tank at now? It's at 30%. Okay, well, we better not be spending a lot of energy on being afraid, because that takes up a heck of a lot of that resource.
Indeed, and don't spend too much fuel worrying about things that you can't change as well, I guess, is a pretty important lesson.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I have a whole bunch of ways to because we have fear in ourselves and in our heads, and we can be spinning around. But what you also don't want to do is fuel that fear with negative news or headline news, and social media can often take you places that aren't constructive. So you have to put a bit of a kryptonite barrier up as well.
You mentioned social media, but I'm not going to pick that up because I get on my soapbox about that so often. That we could have 3 podcasts just on that one. So let's leave that. But one of the first things I say to people as you're deconstructing the fear and looking at the stories and looking at your fuel tank is protect yourself by reducing as much as possible any negativity coming from external forces, whether that is the news, whether that's social media, whether that's a toxic relationship or toxic conversations. And self-awareness helps with that, being aware that, oh, okay, I can put up a barrier here and then put up a boundary, and I can say no, or I can turn that off. That's really, really important. It changes your whole energy field, I guess. Yeah. Thinking about it from the point of view of leaders, managers, people responsible for people. What can we do to recognize the signs in those people we're leading who may be struggling with some of these problems?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a few things that you want to be aware of, I think. Okay. And the first one is really boundary setting. Okay. So are the people that you're working with saying yes when they really said no? Okay. So boundaries is one of them to be aware of. And you have to, again, self-awareness to be aware of what's going on with other people's minds. But boundaries are one, triggers are another, right? So overreacting to like a mild criticism, for example, or feeling maybe unreasonably anxious in a meeting, or flashbacks to some sort of negative situation that may have triggered you. So watch out for people who are triggered, easily, right? That means they are suffering somehow from some conditioning. I suppose the next one would be attachment. Are your team members being team members, or are they refusing to socialize? Is there an aversion to teamwork? Is there something where you see that they're distancing themselves? Okay. So that would be another sign to watch out for. I think, self-image would be the fourth one. And I don't want to say that there's just 4 things or 5. I don't want to leave people with a checklist, but self-image, coming out in, like lack of confidence, inability to accept, compliments, right? So if you compliment somebody because they've done something well and they're like, oh, no, that's a sign. A fear of failure is definitely one. So if I was a leader and a manager today, those are kind of the top 4 things that I would have my radar on for. And that's telling me that someone is struggling. Those are probably the only ones. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, just some.
Yeah. I think that's enough. Those are, even if somebody's got, a couple of those things going on, if you recognize them, you can intervene and help them with them.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, all of those sound familiar from my past career.
Oh, yeah.
From both sides of the table as well.
Me too. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm on a mission, right? Because these are all my lived experiences. Okay. So I didn't go back to school to get certified as a coach, without knowing all of this stuff and having lived it from A to Z. I mean, so this is all lived experience stuff. And I want to help people. My mission is really to help people get to a place of, joy or calm or bliss or to be in a place of thriving faster than I did. I took ages and ages to learn all this stuff. So, that's my mission.
Yeah. No, I think the first one in particular, I think almost everyone who's ever had a job will identify with the having to say yes when you really mean no. Can you just work late, please, David? I need this done by tomorrow. Yes.
Right. And do that for a long time and see how that's affecting your body and your mind and your soul.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But at the same time, you quite often, and I think a lot of bosses are quite skilled in eliciting this reaction, you quite often feel like you can't say no because it will hurt your job, your career prospects, put your paycheck at risk, etc.
Sure. Yes, you're right.
Sadly.
But at the same time, I think, if the relationship is toxic or gets to that point where you're always saying yes when you should say no, maybe it's a rethink on where you're at and what you're doing, because these are not healthy practices, right? I mean, there's great research out now by people like Dr. Gabor Mate. His book, The Myth of Normal, speaks precisely to this kind of stuff, that over time, it results in dis-ease in you. So just keep a check on that is what I'm saying.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You get to that point where it becomes the normal, doesn't it? And you either, fall off the cliff or you make a change.
Yeah, it's not normal. And that's my message to people, that this is not normal. And don't wait until you have a nervous breakdown or you get super depressed or you quit your job and rage one day. Those aren't particularly constructive situations. I know, I've done them. Yeah. Or
get signed off for stress or whatever else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No,
it all ultimately manifests in some way.
Indeed.
that idea of, being self-aware and recognizing it should allow you to, if you're in a situation where you are saying yes too much and those boundaries are being pushed, but allow you to come up with an escape plan or a plan that's constructive and not a reactive based on disease or based on, some kind of breakdown in your psyche.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And to look on the more optimistic side as well. Once you do make that change and you get out the other side of it, everything is so much better. so much better. I can personally confirm this.
Right? Yeah. So that's the thing too. Like you want to kind of reach out and say, come on, things can get better. It doesn't have to be like this. Because often, like I was saying before, we tell ourselves a story and we create a narrative and a construct in our head. Maybe it's based on fear. And then that keeps us locked in, right? So, yeah. Come on over to the other side.
No, I'm 100% with you. I'm on that side already, definitely. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I can tell you are for sure.
Yeah. I mean, having sounds like fairly similar experiences to you, but I mean, I spent many more years in a job that wasn't doing me any good than I should have. And you almost, I mean, you talk about you want to reach out, and I want to reach back and be like, "Oi, David, stop that."
Yeah. Well, yes, you're right. I suppose that's what I'm trying to do is just, hey guys, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be in that state of mind. Let's reconstruct a different story based on who you really are, who you really want to be. Because I think you deserve it. I think people deserve it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. And so going back to as a leader again, so having spotted some of those signs, what should leaders do then to support those people and help them through it if they can?
Right. I think we all can. I suppose the first thing would be to turn down the volume, on your ego. Consider coaching consider approaching leadership from more of a coaching perspective. And coaching really starts from the foundation that I'm okay, you're okay. And is forward looking. And I think the third thing I would do is reconsider performance evaluation from that perspective of coaching. So I'm okay, you're okay. This is a safe space. This is about looking at how to build up on your strengths. So in performance evaluation and dealing with these kinds of issues, we're often using old paradigms, old models, almost industrial revolution type of stuff, where we were producing widgets. But the world has changed dramatically. So I think if a leader or a manager can detach from their ego and bring in a different kind of leadership approach, more of a coaching approach, and look at leadership evaluations or performance evaluations from a different perspective, asking deeper questions, asking more questions, and really finding out what is happening to that person on the other side. Because those moments of management and leadership and evaluation can be really tough because they're using old constructs. So that would be my advice. Start with you and your ego and see how you can make a productive, fruitful conversation. Really, from that perspective of I'm okay and you're okay, and there's no judgment here. It's just how do you improve? What is tomorrow going to look like? How can we make your tomorrow look better so you become a better performer? And look at people more holistically. I think in work environments sometimes we forget the humanity that is going on, and and how people's lives may be very complex on the other side when they leave the office. So it's just about that kind of expanding your perspective, expanding your lens and how you look at things. That's what I would do. That's the advice that I would give to anybody I can.
Yeah. No, I like it. And I think, the performance evaluation point is interesting as well. I think that's something that you're right. The old structures, the old ways of doing it. The annual appraisal, let's focus on your weaknesses.
Right.
It's nonsense, isn't it? Like, I kind of get where it came from. Widgets is a good example, isn't it? And if you're making, homogeneous construction or factory type situation, you want to focus on the weakness because the weakness will bring up the general level of quality, won't it? You focus on the worst ones. Well, that doesn't make sense today. Robots do that stuff now, don't they? So
exactly, and that's the whole point, right? The world has changed dramatically, and AI is contributing to the acceleration of that really quickly. So let's rethink those old models of evaluation, right? And make them more of a coaching conversation and more of a, like you say, let's not focus on your weaknesses. Like, I don't want to focus on my weaknesses. I hate accounting. I'm not going to go and learn accounting and never going to do it. Don't even make me try. So, there you go. That's what I would do.
Yeah. And I think the other point you made as well, maybe you might go and focus on accounting, but that should be your decision. It shouldn't be because your leader or manager has said you're rubbish at accounting, you are going to go and do something. Because it's personal development, isn't it, at the end of the day? It should be guided by the individual. And the manager leader's role is to support whatever their development goals are as much as possible.
Exactly. And you said it, like development, transformation, improvement. Doesn't mean looking in the rearview mirror and going, I'm not a great accountant and let's fix that. No, there's other people for that. That's my 2 cents anyway.
No, I'm with you, definitely. If you had to pick some of the biggest lessons of leadership that you've learned from your career, what would they be?
I suppose if I were to go back and look at, I would examine my intentions and my desires in a different way. And I would probably, I would re-examine the is this really what I want, and why do I want this, and why am I doing it? So it kind of goes back to that first point we talked about, like self-awareness, right? I know that for the first part of my career, I was very ambitious and I was driven by a checklist, right? I need to have this and have this and have this and like it's all those haves, right? And I did that and I checked all the boxes, right? I checked all the boxes. Career, wife, family, marriage, it wasn't white picket fence, but pretty much, the cars and the travel and I call it seeking fabulous, right? And I hit a wall at 35 that because I realized one day that all of that stuff wasn't my mission, wasn't my purpose, that shouldn't have been the driver, really, or those things should have been the driver. So, I would absolutely focus on self-awareness and understanding what your purpose here really is. What do you want to contribute? What do you want to be known for? How do you want to be impactful? But look, also, like, some of the greatest challenges I've had have been the greatest learning experiences too. So, I don't want to say I would erase my history or my past, or those years, but I can tell people, getting into the workforce today, or sort of in the beginnings of their managerial or leadership careers, that self-awareness and that intention and understanding why you're doing this is a very good exercise, because I hope you don't want to be 10 or 15 years into something and then realize, oh my God, why am I doing this? I wanted to do something totally different. So my whole thing is if you can be aware of these questions and these things sooner than later, then my God, you've got much more time, right, to flourish and blossom and grow and really achieve your true potential. So that's why I'm happy to help people speed things up. It's like, no, let's.
No, I'm the same. I think I agree with you. Like you learn much more from mistakes, on average, anyway, than you do from when things go like spectacularly well. If you're lucky enough for that to happen, there's less to learn there, because you won't necessarily, by human nature, dig into why it goes really well. But if something goes wrong, you're going to want to know why, so you don't do it again. Yeah,
I mean, failure is fantastic. It's like, it's great. It's such a great school, school of life, through failure. So, So, and also, it's also, I think how you frame things too, right? So you may be in a situation today that you consider negative or non-productive or what's going on, something's wrong, I'm not happy, but take away the judgment, take away the label, take it and just recognize that it's part of it's school, right? It's the school of life, and you're in it and you're on it, and you're learning tools for tomorrow. So stuff can be tough, but recognizing that it's a learning process, recognizing that it doesn't have to continue, recognizing that changing the label on it and not holding on to it is a fantastic release.
Yeah, and if you're able to look at it through that lens of what, okay, I'm not particularly happy with it, but what can I learn from it? I think that's going to set you up so well for the future.
What am I going to do? What am I doing with it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And is it me? Is it the management? Am I just out of alignment? Am I not being my authentic self? So instead of saying this is crap or whatever, drill down, ask the questions to liberate you and move on to the next chapter.
Definitely. And there is a school of thought that people need to make their own mistakes. And I see some logic in it, but also I think two things. One, why? Like if you can learn from someone else having made the mistake first, go for that instead. But second, I think that's why self-awareness is so much more important, because I think back to the mistakes I've made in my career and my life, I quite often didn't realize how big a mistake it was until many years later looking back. If I'd been more self-aware at the time, I reckon I would have learned a lot more.
100%. This idea sort of stagnating, I guess, in that space or that place. I wish I had me as a coach when I was 25. Who knows how things would have turned out. All right. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Totally with you on that one.
I wish I just had anyone as a coach at 25, to be honest. Can't imagine where I'd be today. But anyway.
Look, I think, I don't want to self-promote, but I still have a coach, right? So I think having somebody that is outside of your workplace and maybe outside of your family or outside of a spousal relationship, somebody that just comes in objectively and can kind of help you with that self-awareness, right? Just get you to that place.
As a follower, then, what has been your own best experience of being led?
as a follower. I think it was when I was with I know it was when I was with a company called IntraWest, which at the time was the largest resort developer in North America. And the chief strategy officer who I worked for was always pushing me to think differently. And I know that sounds like, the Apple tagline, but he really, in a constructive way, right, said, okay, that's an interesting solution, but you can do better, right? Think more possibilities, expand your horizons, widen your lands. What could happen here? How could the scenario or the situation be different, be better, be world-class, be award-winning? And that leadership style, I think, stuck with me. That idea of constructively knowing that you can do better is really empowering. And that was one of the best experiences I've ever had professionally. And I've taken it with me. I use that in coaching. I use that in mentorship. I was just saying to somebody the other day, I was like, this could be Nobel Peace Prize territory. Keep it up, keep digging, because there's something incredibly juicy in here. So that, and it was only a few years of working with that individual, but that approach, that sort of limitless possibilities, and the tagline of the company was "We work to play." So it already had a culture, and several coaches have come out of that culture because it was extremely fun and playful. Grueling work at the same time, right? Like really tough solutions to figure out, but by being allowed to kind of dreamscape and think of possibilities, that would have been it, or that was it. That was it.
Yeah, best
experience.
Obviously had a lasting impact as well, which is usually the first sign that it's been a good experience.
Well, yeah. I remember nothing from my decade in finance and banking. Like, it's all just a blur. But yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Those moments where you are in the company of great leadership should be impactful, and it should be memorable. You're right. Hadn't thought about that, but other moments that were less interesting are a blur. Who knows? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I do find, though, that the bad leadership experiences, they really stick in people's minds quite easily. But the good ones, I think, have to be really, really good to stick in your head and have that impact over time. So I think that just speaks to how much of a positive impact this individual must have had on you.
Yeah. Well, the bad ones are yeah, you're right.
Sadly, again.
sadly, there's more of those. There's more of those than the exceptional ones. But it doesn't have to always be this way. I think it feels, I don't know about you over in the UK, but it feels as though there's a bit of and maybe the Great Resignation is an example of this, or a symptom of it. There seems to be a shift in the way people are thinking about work. And I know, like with my work with Kalo, we're doing a workplace well-being program that is, transformational. And I was looking at some of the ROI numbers and the data and the statistics of, if you start to bring if you bring exceptional leadership into a work environment, and you bring, thoughtful mindfulness, self-aware leaders in, where they are really like I had at IntraWest, where they're really nurturing and nourishing your possibilities and your potential, it feels like that's bubbling up. I don't know about you, but it just feels like, even I was speaking to somebody the other day about about the architecture even of offices today and how that's changing and how they're being seen more as meeting places and community creation places as opposed to workstation, widget producing, come in, do this, leave kind of thing. So I think that's wonderful. That seems very exciting to me. I feel really excited about the future of work, and notwithstanding all the craziness of the last 3 years, feels like we're going to come out of it better than before. I don't know what you think, but
yeah, I hope so. There definitely has been a shift. I think. I don't know. I mean, whether the Great Resignation was a cause or a symptom is hard to tell. I think there's a generational aspect as well.
Sure.
The whole Gen Z, millennials, and whichever the latest one is, I can't keep track.
No, I don't know either. I'm struggling with all the alphabet soups that we're supposed to remember. I need to look up a manual. All that stuff.
Yeah, we need a glossary.
Yeah, but the change is hopefully productive and good as we enter a new era post-pandemic.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the office kind of setup you've just described is kind of my dream, actually. That'd be the way. If I was in a company of more than just me again, and we had an office, that's how it would be. It would be hybrid working. It would be a communal place for people to socialize even, and that's the purpose of the office. And then work is done wherever.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But everybody I'm speaking to that has some kind of impact in that area, that's exactly where it's going. It's lovely. It's great to know that even the architecture of spaces is also adapting to this shift that has happened, right? So hallelujah. Yeah. Onward and upward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the same time, I don't know. I try not to be too pessimistic about it, but certainly in the UK, the potential economic climate of what's coming over the next couple of years for us is having perhaps more of a pull backwards from that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. We'd need another podcast to look at that. And what I do a lot of is really sense making, right? Like let me rephrase this. I think you're right that there's a lot of change coming down the pipeline. There may be a lot of hardship. I mean, the world seems to have gone crazy recently. We're coming out of 70 years of a total anomaly for world history, right? The last, where the period in which you and I grew up in is very singular from a historical perspective. So what I try and do with over and above everything that we've just been speaking about is, okay, this is me, this is my office, this is my work environment, this is my leadership, this is management and things like that. How does that all fit into, how does that contextualize into what's happening from a megatrend perspective, from a macroeconomic perspective, what's going on in the world? So I would urge your listeners too, to think, turn off social media, turn off the headline news, stop consuming the distractions, right? Look at, go and read some history. Look, there's incredible books have come out recently, like, what's it called? A Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, which looks at history from an evolutionary biology perspective. And it says, everything in our world today is so hyper novel, but our bodies, our primate bodies and minds are still catching up and still figuring out how this works. We don't know the long-term effects of social media or Twitter or Facebook on people's mental health. No idea. It just started yesterday from a minute ago. So turn all that stuff off, dive into some history, okay? And dive into some geopolitics, right? There's a guy called Peter Zayan who's got a book out. It's called The End of the World. The end of the world is just the beginning. And he's looking at us historically from kind of the Industrial Revolution until now. And it's fascinating, looking at understanding demographics and how everything is changing. So when you and I, or the managers or leaders that are looking at their working environment and feeling unsettled, well, there's a reason for all that, and it's justified because we've lived through 50 or 70 years of incredible growth and abundance, but that's all changing thanks to demographics and thanks to economics and stuff. So the last thing I do is in sense making is, listen to longer form podcasts too, right? Let's the tidbits and the crumbs that we get from social media or Twitter or whatever, they're not really serving you as a leader and as a manager. So pull back, macro perspective, sense make a little bit what's really going on. And that's I don't know if that was your question, but that's really what I try and do yeah, that was your question. It was about economics and how things are going to get, rocky in the UK. Yeah, they are. But if you understand the bigger pieces and the movements and what's happening, you can adapt, right? You can make changes. You can go back, get a different skill, adapt to the new world order. And Ray Dalio actually did a beautiful video. I think it's called The New World Order. He wrote a book about it, about the rise and the decline of the last 5 or 6 empires, right? The Dutch Empire and the British Empire and the American Empire and the Chinese Empire. And it's all fascinating stuff. History is repeating itself. So learn it. It'll contextualize the challenges of today in a much richer, more informed, less reactionary, less reactive way. So you can perform better with yourself and with your teams.
Yeah. It's
long answer, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's interesting.
I babble on.
Interesting how you say history is repeating. That makes me think of the old maxim. Those who don't learn from the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. Well, are we therefore?
Yeah, all this stuff has happened before. Inequality, division, political division, even gender. All the things happening around gender these days. It's all happened before. It's reassuring to know that it's happened before and that there's a way out, and when things crash, it's other things are reborn. So as a leader, I keep thinking, going back to the intent of the podcast, as a leader or a manager, if you can contextualize what is happening in the day-to-day in a wider perspective, in a more historical perspective, you can react differently. So maybe the crash isn't straight down, and the crash can be leveled out. Okay, what does that look like, and how can I be the best leader I can, notwithstanding what's going on? Right?
Yeah, and I think the origin of that question for me was about whether these further impending changes or hardships are going to result in a backslide away from all of the positive changes we're seeing in the world of work. And if that is the case, then I guess a plea to the business owners, the leaders, the managers, these changes have happened for a reason. They are a good thing. Stick to them. Don't abandon them as soon as times get hard again.
Yeah, very good point. That's great advice, I think. But if you aren't aware, and if you aren't learning, and if you aren't open to, that sort of wider angle lens, then you will react and you will shut things down and you will fire or do things that you may regret. So I think to be a better leader, you want to be aware of those mega trends and the macro trends.
This might be a difficult question, or it might be a really easy one. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Okay.
If you were to start your career journey over again, would you do anything differently?
Oh yeah, I would do everything differently. I went to university, and I had in my head this whole checklist of things I had to do and accomplish and get, and it was a reaction to, a childhood where I may not have had those things, or where I felt that I needed to perform better or be worthy or whatever. I mean, that's a whole other podcast too. But if I was more self-aware at 25, and understood why I was working and what I was working for, or thought about what my purpose in life was, as opposed to, a bank account and a Range Rover and, Christmas in St. Moritz and Easter in Saint Tropez. Right? So yeah, I would have totally done things differently, but I didn't know. I had no clue. So I hope that in the work that I do, I can help people emerge, get there faster, and not waste their time. Not waste their time pursuing things that are not feeding them and nourishing them and nurturing them and the world, I guess. So, long answer to a yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms of leadership as well. Like, if you do it the modern way, the engaging way, the people first way, it's not putting money first, which a lot of business owners feel the need to do, but actually ultimately it kind of is, because if you do all those things, you see the rewards from better engaged staff, more productivity, and therefore ultimately better financial performance. So you end up in the same place, but you've done it the right way instead. Better retention, better loyalty, better happiness, fewer sick days. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it doesn't have to be, woo-woo stuff. It's this working with a different intention produces better results, and science is proving that. ROI is proving that. Data and statistics are proving that, from the biggest companies in the world, Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, Coors, every one of them that decided to treat their teams as humans and more holistically, and in a 2023 way, not a 1930s way, have huge impact just on, saved sick days, right? For example, but there's a dozen things that impact the work environment. And so if you can be as purpose driven as possible and add that human element, right, you're going to have better performance. Because today I was talking to a consultant recently, people don't, you used to lead with a stick, right? And then we started leading with carrots. That today is changed, right? It's not about carrots and sticks anymore. It's got to be much more meaningful and purpose driven. So yeah, there you go. Long answer. Sorry, I talked too much. No, not at all. It's a long form podcast. There's no such thing.
That's great. That's great.
Excellent. Having said that, we are nearly out of questions.
Okay. Feel for it.
Okay, well, we've got two left. So first one then.
Yeah.
You mentioned about sense making earlier, which is, I think, quite an undervalued skill. So what advice could you offer to help leaders do that more effectively in today's complicated world?
I guess it's really what we were talking about a minute ago is turn off the negativity, turn off the tidbits, right? Stop eating junk food from a information perspective. Okay. And really, dive into a bit of macroeconomics and mega trends and follow podcasts like this one, where the conversations have depth to them. Because I think we live in a society of hyper. I mean, our phones are just so, I think, so destructive. In this world of hyper novel, overstimulation, too much information, too many distractions. Cut out all that noise as much as you can, and see what happens. I think it's pretty liberating, kind of freeing, and it allows for creativity and possibilities and potential, right? As opposed to stuck to this, reacting to the news, reacting to, colleagues that may be suffering psychologically, like we spoke about at the beginning. So, yeah, there you go. Those were my points. And there's a few people that are doing, great work to follow. Mel Robbins just started a podcast that's wonderful. It's like it's like goal setting in the 21st century based on research from today, or it's, managing anxiety. All it's only a few months old and it's brilliant. So yeah, stop with the distractions, man. They're not serving you, even though they're delicious, right? It's like eating from a box of candy. And I get it, but, I'll go on YouTube and look up, crazy stuff, or, what's happening at Fox News, and oh my God, Tucker Carlson and all that sort of juicy stuff, or, I'll listen to Russell Brand, freaking out about, freedom and the World Economic Forum or whatever. But just recognize that you're eating candies, right? It's like opening a box of chocolates and you're eating some bonbons and it's like a guilty pleasure. Just make sure that you recognize that, right? That's my thing. Make sure you understand what you're consuming, right? Whether it's food, news, information, whatever. If you understand what you're consuming, right, you can make more measured decisions. And I think because consumption of all of those negative things, as delicious as they might be, right, and as addictive as they are, and as you get the hits from the dopamine and the endorphins and whatever, it's not serving your energy well, right? And I'm a big believer in in what is what the energy that you're emitting is the energy you get back, right? And it's physics. And quantum physics is coming around to showing us and demonstrating how these things affect the body, and how they affect the mind, and how they affect your energy, and how you interact with people. So that would be my advice, I think.
Good advice, I think. And something else that you alluded to earlier as well, I think is very important. Seek out those alternative viewpoints, those opposing views, opposing opinions. You don't have to agree with them to understand them, but understanding them will help you make a more balanced decision. Sorry, go on.
No, like you said, like I totally agree with you. And you want to make sure that you're not in in your own echo chamber, right? And that's and social media, whether and news and other sort of channels of information can and do keep you in an echo chamber. So you'll get more of what you were looking at, right? And often because the sort of inflammatory nature of social media, it will keep you in that space longer and longer and longer. And then you believe everything you've said, and you believe everything you say, and you can't debate, and you can't see life through that perspective of, and you can't debate anybody. You want to be able to have conversations and debates, not broadcasting anger or frustration or whatever, right?
Stopping talking to someone because you don't agree with whatever they've said.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Get away. Let's not even go there. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Indeed. Indeed. No, it's kind of a worrying trend in culture, really, isn't it? Of late.
For sure. But there are alternatives are popping up. And I think there is, I hope there is anyway. I'm much more cognizant of it now and aware of it now than I was before. Aware, and I feel it too. Like you want to also listen to your body, right? As a leader, and are you fueling it in the best way possible for yourself and your teams? Because if you all of that consumption of negativity, it affects you physically. We know that now. And that will ultimately affect how you're showing up as a leader or a manager or an entrepreneur or in a startup situation. So you want to protect yourself as much as possible from that stuff. It's not useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun. Like I say, it's like eating candy or junk food, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what they say about candy. It's fine in moderation as long as it's part of a balanced diet. So,
yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it's really tough to have that balanced diet in today's society. I'm not talking just about food. I'm talking just in general.
Not to stretch the metaphor too much, but maybe just don't spend all your time next to the candy machine. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good metaphor. I like that. Can I write that down?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Can I use that? That sounds good.
Maybe go to one of those healthy restaurants or something and eat lettuce every now and then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I've strained the metaphor too far now. Let's move on.
Yeah, we're pushing it.
Leadership Heroes.
Okay, last question.
Yeah,
this is
tell me.
always my favorite question. I call it Leadership Heroes.
Okay.
So if you had to pick one person, and they can be anyone you can think of, really, alive or dead, past, present, real or fictitious, if you like, as well, and that person would, in your opinion, perfectly embody leadership, who would that be and why?
Okay, I think it would be Sam Harris, who's an American philosopher and thinker. He's a writer. He's a podcaster. He has an app called Waking Up. And what I really love about what he's doing is he's recognized that how do I say this? He's helping people recognize what's really going on in their heads, and is dedicated to helping end psychological suffering. So he's not like a corporate guy. There's no people in corporations that I would substitute for him, but I think he's a thought leader, and he's pushing people to think deeper, a little kind of everything we've spoken about, and maybe he's influenced me quite a bit in thinking differently, looking at things through a wider angle lens, having real debate, real conversation, even with people you may not like or agree with. And he's expressing it through his books, through his podcast, through his app. And I think that's incredible. Because the essence of it all is that psychological suffering that we all have. Yeah. So break free, wake up, and thrive. That's his message, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good pick. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely go and find his podcast.
Oh, check it out. It's called just Sam Harris. It's Making Sense with Sam Harris.
Cool. Okay.
Great.
Nice
and,
one.
His Waking Up podcast, his Waking Up app is brilliant too. I've shared it with everybody I know.
Okay. All right, I'll take a look at that as well. Yeah. Long list
Awesome.
of things he does. Is there anything he doesn't do?
I don't know. I don't know him personally, but I'd love to meet him. But certainly what he does publicly is game changing. It has been for me, certainly.
Well, you can't get much better recommendation than that, can you? They are listeners.
There you go. That's
Great.
it.
All right. Well, I think the only other thing that I always give every guest the opportunity to do at the end is if you'd like to point the listeners towards perhaps you've got your own podcast or a book coming out or anything like that, or simply your website if they want to learn more about you.
Yeah, so I am working on a book. It's called Fear Less, Crossing the Bridge from Fear to Bliss. It's in developmental edit, which means I have to go back to the drawing board a lot and retool things and keep working when I thought I was really done. But just jump on my website, colinkingsmill.com. Come and say hello, start a conversation. I'm here to serve, and pop in there and let's have a conversation.
Great.
Awesome. I'm also on Instagram, which again, I don't love broadcasting, but I'm trying to have a conversation now with people on there, as Instagram is turned into TikTok. So it's all videos now, which is funny. But anyway, yeah, I'm there too. Just Colin Kingsmill. You can find me easily. Thank you so much, David. That was great. Really
thanks for your time. Yeah, it's been great talking to you. We've covered some really interesting topics, I think, and I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy it.
Oh, good. I hope they do. Yeah, I really hope they do. And thanks for the work you're doing. It's great.
Likewise. Thanks, Colin.
All right. You bet.
Thanks again to Colin for a great episode there. Really enjoyed that conversation. We covered all kinds of different subjects again. These are getting really in-depth, some of these episodes now. So listener, I hope you're getting as much value out of these chats as I am. Really enjoyed that one. And if you would like to learn more about Colin, again, put his website and even a link to his Instagram in the episode description so you can find that easily. If you'd like to learn more about leading with integrity, if you'd like to sign up to one of our leadership programs, the quickest and easiest way to get more information about that is to visit the website, which is www.leadernotaboss.co.uk/sign up. That website should work internationally, but if you can't access it from wherever you are, as I know many of my listeners are not in the UK, just drop me a message via LinkedIn instead. I'll put the link to my profile also in the episode description. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope you will join us again next week. And in the meantime, stay safe, keep working on that self-awareness, keep an open mind to all of those different points of view and opinions, and don't discount things just because you disagree with them. And finally, as ever, remember, be a leader, not a boss.